If you do not mind, then appreciate my efforts by subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much in advance.
So, on February 20th, 2022, Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Anatov, said on CBS that the Russian Federation is not trying to take territory from other countries, and noted that Donbas is part of Ukraine. Approximately the same thing was said by the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Lavrov, and the former president of Russia, Medvedev. But on February 24th, Putin launched a massive Russian invasion of Ukraine. In those days, a fighter of the 128th Separate Mechanized Mountain Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, with the call sign ADAR, was finishing his training mission at a training ground in the western part of Ukraine. No, he's not a rookie. For him, the war began 8 years ago, when the guy locked up his auto repair shop and volunteered for the first time in the Donbas. At the same time, the call sign ADAR appeared. This is the name of the river halfway if you go from Luhansk to Severodonetsk. In the fall of 2014, Alexander was seriously injured. Back then, 19 fragments got stuck in the body of the Ukrainian soldier. 2 of them remained in his body forever. After 8 years, Russia unleashed a full-scale war against Ukraine, and ADAR's experience came in handy again. The beginning of the Russian invasion found him at the training ground, where Ukrainian fighters mastered new weapons for themselves. The FGM-148 Javelin and NLAW anti-tank systems, as well as the bunker defeat munition M141 grenade launcher. By order of the commander, the fighters for the training ground immediately went to the front line. The positions of his brigade were first in the Donetsk and then in the Zaporizhzhia region. Under the onslaught of endless columns of Russian machines, the Ukrainians fought back. There was an acute shortage of anti-tank weapons. The day when Alexander destroyed 6 targets of the occupiers became an unforgettable day in his life, and for the Russian tank commanders who were hit by javelins, this day was the last. The morning for ADAR and his partner began with the choice of approximate positions. The tactics of the Ukrainian military in the Donbas and the south are somewhat different from the tactics used by the hunters for Russian tanks near Kyiv. The defenders of the capital of Ukraine attacked Russian mechanized columns from the flank. In the Donbas, tanks had to be met head-on. The choice of positions was unsuccessful. Russian tanks and infantry fighting vehicles broke through in another area where they were not expected. Therefore, the Russians actually approached from the rear. ADAR and his friend had to quickly change position. By radio, ADAR received a command that the tanks were behind him. When he and his partner got into the car to move to another place, they came under fire. However, the guys were lucky. They drove through the line of fire unharmed. At the new position, ADAR noticed 2 Russian tanks and 1 infantry fighting vehicle. The Russians fired heavily on the forest belt where his 128th Brigade dug in. The Ukrainians' first shot at about 8,000 feet was successful. After the rocket hit the tank, the ammunition detonated. A black column of smoke rose. The crew could not get out. On the radio, the commander ordered ADAR to change position so as not to fall under return fire. Several seconds elapsed between the launch of an anti-tank missile and the destruction of the target. After launch, the rocket climbs to 490 feet and then dives down on the target. This is in the case of an attack on a tank. Less protected objects are attacked by direct fire, and then the missiles rise to a height of 165 feet. The operator selects the attack mode before firing. The maximum rocket speed does not exceed 330 feet per second. The maximum range is 8,200 feet. The missile, launched by the Ukrainian shooter, flew to the target for about 17 seconds. Javelin operates on a fire-and-forget basis, but ADAR could not take his eyes off the tank. This was his first non-practice shot with a javelin. He wanted to see everything in detail. Due to the lack of anti-tank systems, the guy did not have the opportunity to shoot at the range. But on the other hand, he learned the theory well and learned how to quickly prepare the javelin for a shot. Typically, the javelin operator has about 10 seconds to move to safety. That is, the missile may not reach the target yet when the enemy will already return fire. A launched rocket leaves a trail of smoke, so it is easy for the enemy to find the point of the shot. Therefore, when the shooter is changing the launch container for the next shot or is about to change position, he can become a target for return fire. Adar decided to take a chance and fire a second shot from his previous position. He ordered the assistant to bring the second container. The Javelin consists of a Command Launch Unit, CLU, and a Disposable Missile Transport and Launch Canister, TLC. After launch, the empty TLC is disconnected from the Command Launch Unit, CLU, and discarded. For the next shot, you need to connect a new container with a rocket. The shooter needs at least 30 seconds to replace the TLC. By this time, 2.5 to 3.5 minutes should be added for the sight to enter the operating mode, and another 30 seconds for the missile's homing head to cool down. The IFV, Infantry Fighting Vehicle Gunner, found Adar's position and opened heavy fire to allow the second tank to leave the line of fire. Branches shot down by bullets rained down on Adar. These were difficult moments for the Ukrainian fighter. A person experiences something similar when he tries to tie his shoelace in front of an oncoming train. Adar's brain and body ordered him to run, but will and excitement took over. He aimed straight at the firing IFV and withstood a 30-second pause. Waiting for the missile ready to launch signal when you're being hit with direct fire is the hardest thing. Finally, the seeker of the missile fixed the target. Start. And the Russian IFV was engulfed in flames and smoke. Second target hit. Adar won the duel not only with the IFV machine gunner, but also with human nature. After the second shot, he no longer followed the rocket with his eyes. Now he was sure that it would find its target. At this moment, a Russian MTLB appeared between the flaming tank and the IFV. The Russians still wanted to suppress and destroy Adar's position. The Ukrainian again decided to raise the stakes. The third PTK took its place. Aim, hold, shoot. Again, direct hit. 3 targets in 12 minutes is the technical limit of the Javelin. To achieve such a rate of fire is difficult even for an experienced shooter at a training ground. Fortunately, Adar did not think about it. In a real fight, when the wind from the bullets moves the air on your head, you don't think about records. Adar and his partner ran to the car to change their location. There were 3 shots left, and the day had just begun. The Ukrainian fighter didn't know what awaited him next. The new position again had a tank and an infantry fighting vehicle. It was relatively easy prey, so there was no fatigue. There seemed to be no end to this flow. When Adar went to the car for the 6th rocket, he heard the shout of his comrade. The assistant warned that a Russian armored personnel carrier was in the forest belt. Adar thought the target was in the forest belt at the other end of the field, so he slowly approached his car. It turned out that the armored personnel carrier broke through to the place of their deployment. The 6th duel was the most dramatic. The driver of the Russian armored personnel carrier noticed the Ukrainian and went to ram him.